All right, hello, Raphael X here. If you like what you see, please subscribe, click on the notifications button, also share this video and click on the like button also. It's important so we can get more viewers. All right, as always, let's start with prayer. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tu mulieribus et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Jesus. Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostrae. Amen. Ave Maria, sede sapientiae, ora pro nobis, nomine Patris, Filii, Spiritus Sancti. Amen. All right. I hope all are doing well in this vigil day of Our Lady, the Immaculate Conception. All right. So what we're going to talk about is we're going to continue talking about the spiritual life. And we're going to talk about specifically about not advancing is to go back. If you don't advance in spiritual life, you're going to go back. There's nothing stagnant, right? There's nothing immutable about life. Only God is immutable. Everything we experience here is changing, right? Change is actually something, a reality that is immediately evident, right? All the philosophers saw this. And actually, change brought them to realize that there must be something that doesn't change underneath all this change. And that's the subject of metaphysics, right? What doesn't change, the immutable reality under this, what we don't immediately perceive. So we do perceive change, which is essentially, well, actually, time is essentially based on change, our calculation of change, right? So time has to do with change. God is outside of time, outside of change. We are not God, right? So we either go back in the spiritual life, falling into vice, or we go forward in the spiritual life, obtaining virtue. So this is very important to consider, right? The only way to not fall back is to advance. So just like a man is in a stream of water, right? A strong current will take him backwards if he doesn't move towards his goal positively, right? He has to move and swim towards the goal, or if he just stops, the stream will take him back. So you can see this analogy with the passions, how the passions, right, because of our fallen nature, we have this disorder where our passions can dominate in us, right? They can dominate our reason. So the passions will be the current if we don't stop, if we don't fight against them, we don't build this spirit of learning how to deny them, essentially, and cultivating good virtue. All right. So, a funny thing, I was watching the other videos. I realized I had this shirt in all the other videos. It's coincidence, though. Of course, coincidence. That's for atheists, right? We believe in providence, so maybe it's providential that I wear this shirt. Everything is filtered by God's providence. Coincidence doesn't exist, as I said in another video. But yes, I do have more shirts, just so you know. All right, so yeah, it just happens to be that I just wear this shirt on this day. But anyway, I also want to mention this ties to the sin of omission. And this is actually a sin that Jesus alludes to many times in the Gospels. But it's a sin that we don't really, especially today, we don't give much importance to. I mean, who confesses a sin of omission? Barely, right? People don't confess that normally. Priests don't preach about that. Excuse me. Nevertheless, Jesus said, right? You didn't, right? To the goat's on his right. You didn't. When I was hungry, you didn't feed me. When I was lonely, you didn't visit me. When I was thirsty, you didn't give me drink. So they were essentially condemned not for what they did, but for what they didn't do. So we hear all the time, oh, I'm good because I don't do this, right? It's a good in a negative sense. I'm good because I don't do this. I don't kill. I don't lie, right? But what good do you do? And sometimes the only good that we do are just natural goods. I take care of my family, right? Without any supernatural reference. Of course, the natural can be supernaturalized, especially if we have the principle of grace, if we're living the life of sanctifying grace. But what acts of charity do we do? I mean, we just do, our strict obligation to the family, things like that. But we should do things that are hard for us, essentially helping out the poor, right? Giving advice to those who need it, teaching, right? Helping out at a soup kitchen. So these are acts of charity that we need to do. So the spiritual life has to be considered as something positive in a sense that we add something, we do good. So it's very important, the sin of omission. Consider this when you go to confession, right? Don't just think about the bad I'm doing, but think about the good you aren't doing or you left undone. So do you remember the parable with the talents that Jesus gave different men certain talents? I think it was five to one, and then two to another. They multiplied them, they doubled them, and to one man God gave him one talent. Jesus was saying the parable. God gave him one talent, and when the king came back, the king said, "Okay, give me, what you made off that one talent." So the man gave him the talent back and said, "I was scared, because I know you are a demanding man, so I just, I put in a hole in the ground, and here it is. Here's your talent back." And the king said, "You wicked servant," right? You wicked servant. He didn't do anything, right? He didn't do any bad, a positive bad, an actual bad, but the absence of good, the omission, which is bad in itself. So I always like to think, what would have happened if he would have lost the talent? Oh, I lost the talent, right? It would have been even worse. So you see the sin of omission, which Jesus stresses a lot, very important here. So Saint Bernard actually wrote a letter to a religious. It's interesting. A religious who was kind of satisfied. A friar. No, they weren't friars at the time. They were monks. And he wrote to him because this religious was satisfied in his state. And he said, "You do not want to go forward? No. Then you want to turn back? Not that either. What then do you want? I want to stay as I am, neither better nor worse." So he's asking the questions and then answering them. Then you want what is impossible. Because as I said before, this only pertains to God, right? God is the only one who is immutable. For in this world there is nothing that can stay as it is. That is the attribute of God alone, with whom there is no change, nor shadow, nor vicissitude. So again, we are constantly changing. And actually, the word stability, right, does imply a certain element of immutability. So we have to be stable in a way. The sinners are the most changeable people, if you will, because they're constantly living off their passions, right? And the passions constantly change. One day you're happy, right? And then happiness in the way of feelings merely. One day you're happy, one day you're angry, right? One day you want to seek pleasure, the other day you're tired of that same pleasure. So we're constantly in this flux, right? And that's essentially the opposite of God. So we definitely don't want to live that. Job, he fleeth like a shadow and never remaineth in the same state. He's talking about man, but man as a sinner. So again, realizing how we live in a changing world, let us change for the better. Let us progress to do good and to be good, living the life of virtue. I think there was something else here I wanted to say. Not much. So my notes here. No, that's pretty much it. So St. Thomas Aquinas, who does deal with the religious state, because religion, in the life of religion, they are bound to be perfect, right? You go to a religious state to be perfect, so it can make or break you. So it's a high calling and a high demand that if you don't fulfill, of course, you're going to have, right? You're going to be much worse off. So religious really, and actually all Christians in a way, are called to live this perfection, right? To advance forward, to live the life of virtue is important. Essentially what the Christian is, but more so to religious. under the vows of poverty, obedience, and chastity, which definitely help for the greater perfection, right? So I just want to end with this, with the common maxim in Latin that the saints use. So you know that this doesn't come from me. I'm not making this up. In via Dei no progredi, regredi est. So in the way of God, those who don't go forward go back, right? Those who do not advance go back, all right? So I hope you understood what I was saying. Remember always, reason illuminated by faith. Both of these are a source of knowledge. Faith, of course, infinitely, quasi-infinitely, well, infinitely, essentially, surpasses reason, right? But reason is a gift from God, but reason always illuminated by faith. And faith also to not fall into superstition, aided by reason, right? Human reason. All right. So until next time, take care and God bless. Hope you enjoyed this video. Remember again, click subscribe button, notifications, share, and like button. God bless you.